John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, yesterday, cardroom dealers up and down the state of California went to Sacramento to protest Rob Bonta, who wants to take their jobs away by banning blackjack at any cardroom that's not a tribal casino because Bonta got paid off.
In Topanga.
Well, it sounds to me like if they want him to back off, they need to pony up more money.
To go big and to go strong.
Isn't it strange that of all the problems that exist in California, the one that has generated more of his attention than anything else are the card rooms?
He also had a press conference this week where he's going after the manufacturers of those plastic bags at grocery stores that we allowed with the law that banned the other plastic bags at grocery stores.
So what are we supposed to do now? Just tie our groceries to the roof of our car?
Yep.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the founding member of Recall Gavin Newsom 2020. You can find him online at rebuildcalifornia.com and follow him on X at Netter Mike Netter. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me today. It sounds like I should go down to a card room and make a bet on what Gavin Newsom will screw up next.
Don't split your tens. All right, let's start out with Prop 50 because I've got to say, I'm scratching my head here. I am a reliable Republican voter. I've never missed an election since I turned 18 years of age. And I'm certainly opposed to Proposition 50 and anything that Gavin Newsom is trying to do right now to rig our elections. That being said, I'm aware of the fact that the No on Prop 50 side has raised approximately $80 million. I cast my ballot about a week or so ago, and I have not seen, since this campaign started, I have not seen one No on 50 commercial on television. I have not seen or heard one No on 50 ad on the radio. I haven't received anything in my mailbox from No on 50. I did before the voting started. I got a couple of pieces of mail. But since the voting started, I've received nothing in the mail. And I thought to myself, okay, well, maybe I'm an anomaly. Maybe because I've been watching Major League Baseball playoffs, that's expensive, and they decided that was too expensive for them, so they were buying other things. But I'm not seeing it there. I'm not seeing it on the NFL games. I'm not seeing it on NHL games. I'm not seeing it when I watch the news channels. I'm not hearing it on talk radio. What the hell are they doing with their money? Because I know they have it. I don't see them spending it. And if you look at turnout as it stands right now, Republican voters are not turning out to vote. Your thoughts?
Well, let's start. I'm going to cuss on the radio, which I'm supposed to do, and use the word consultants. And I apologize to all the people with small children and pets out there. Part of the problem we have on the right side is the conservative side, where Gavin Newsom is kind of galvanized, and you probably saw the poll which came out this morning from YouGov, run by CBS. He's galvanized his side against Trump. It's Newsom versus Trump, even though they're not running. Where I think on the conservative side, John, part of the problem is the message is complicated. It's really not complicated, but they make it complicated. We're drawing little maps showing what's wrong. We're showing how the people, the farmers in Fresno are getting taken away their representation, all valid points, but the people in LA are like, huh? And then I think also part of the challenge, so the TV messages that I have seen commercials, and I think part of the challenge is that, and again, I've said this before probably on your show, Gavin Newsom, I get more messages from Gavin Newsom than I do from relatives, even the ones I'm close to, every day. My text box, it's Gavin, hi, it's Gavin, hi, it's Gavin, like we're close. Okay, every day I go into my email box looking to find when am I supposed to be on KABC. It's difficult to find because I have 27 email messages from Gavin Newsom. The right has to learn, the conservatives, how to target voters digitally. And I think that the TV ads and the other things that the left or Gavin is doing, he's done a pretty good job of setting this up. It's Gavin versus Trump. It's really not. My opinion is the right hasn't really, or the conservatives haven't clarified their message. And to add another layer on before I take a breath, which I do occasionally, I think also part of the challenge is immediately in these elections these days, we watch them like it's a football game. It's the 20-yard line. There's 4 weeks to go. And our side immediately comes out, and you see a lot of this in the Republican Party. I'm going to say passing the negative message again. We haven't voted. We haven't voted. We haven't voted. Indeed, we haven't, and indeed, we do need to get out and vote. But I think spending a lot of time on our side deflating people, making it sound like it's already a lost cause is a problem. And I think, again, the consultants, and I'm not going to name names here, that I know working on these various disparate camps that we have, because the Republican Party is not united under one umbrella like Gavin is doing, because he's a master money scammer. Bernie Madoff should have taken lessons from him. The message isn't real clear to people. In other words, vote no because it will take away your representation. To quote Gavin, full stop.
Well, usually what happens in California is that the Democratic candidate can raise a lot of money because they are heavily favored to win the election and people want access to the government. The Republican candidate has a very difficult time raising money because they are a severe underdog, and the likely scenario is that they won't win, so why should you write them a check if they're not going to win the election? In this particular case, with $80 million, there should be some evidence of them spending money to try to get the point across. For example, I receive any number of emails from listeners who are mad at me because the Yes on 50 side is buying a lot of spots on this radio program and the No on 50 side is not. Well, I have no control over who buys and who doesn't, and it's heavily regulated in terms of what the ad rates are for political races, and you have to sell to them. That's part of the deal. And I don't have an explanation for people as to why they're not seeing these ads, but they're seeing it from the other side, and it's driving our side nuts, and I hear about it every day.
I think part of the problem with that is exactly what we discussed previously, that unfortunately in California, and it's getting better. I don't want this to all, in a way, whether we win or lose Prop 50, I think it will help unite a little bit more of California. Gavin is doing that himself with many of his failures. If we have the time, we can go over. But because we have, I mean, I get calls too, can you help us sell advertising? Who do we call? I'm like, there's 5 major groups with 40 people per group, not really one decision maker in each of those groups, because the groups can't get together and go in and do one really big advertising buy. And again, I think because of that, John, the message is we don't look. When you look at the poll I'm talking about, for example, that I got sent this morning, okay, people are voting yes on 50 because they oppose Trump, which literally has, like saying I'm watching TV, whatever, it doesn't make any sense to me. But that's the message that the left has done very well, or Gavin Newsom's camp, in uniting that message across all the various camps, the disparate camps, even within the Democratic Party. He's collected all the money under one tent. What the Republican side seems to be doing in California, because they seem to have been caught, frankly, I don't know why they were caught off guard by this, but again, where do you go to buy the advertising, place to sell the advertising, to place one big buy, to get the ads out that need to get to the public where the public needs to see them? it's interesting that the left message, Gavin's message, is very negative. Our message should be, and it really is, preserve your district, preserve your rights. Their message is all about opposition. Oppose Trump, stick it to somebody. You've heard Gavin ramble on about it. We got to stick it to Trump. We got to stick it to this. We got to stick it to that. And the rights message is, oh my God, look what was being done to us. You need to preserve. It's a more positive message, but we're not disseminating it. You have a very valid point correctly. And the groups should really have all gotten together, in my not so humble opinion, early on. And instead of hiring 40 different consultants, and without revealing my hand, as you both know, I'm pretty well connected in this state. And I talk to the various people in these groups, and I'm like, who's in charge of this? Who's in charge of that? No one's quite too sure. Okay, we have mysterious people. Kevin McCarthy's not that mysterious, but he has people working around him that I don't think, quote, I'm going to say a team meeting. Charles Munger has put his money in, but it's a couple degrees removed from where people that actually sell the advertising and can shape the message can get in. Good. We've done a really good job at raising money. I don't know that we've done an excellent job at executing the money. And Gavin's going to have a ton of leftover money with a purpose that he'll use in some form or another to run for president. But I think the problem we have on our side, again, is that we haven't clarified with one simple message, and we haven't clarified a point of entry even for each group, how to execute getting our message into media like KABC.
Let's just say for a second that Prop 50 passes. What do you think that's going to do to turnout? Because we know we're having a hard time turning people out to vote on Prop 50. It's not just the Republicans, by the way, but no party preference voters are voting at an even lower rate than Republicans. Mm-hmm. And while Democrats are doing better than Republicans, it's not by much. But if Prop 50 passes, and we know that there really aren't any competitive races statewide, a Republican hasn't won a statewide election in California since 2006. That was Arnold Schwarzenegger for governor and Steve Poizner for insurance commissioner. But if you then say, okay, there's no competitive statewide races, and maybe you were one of the people that lived in an area where there was a competitive congressional race, but now those outcomes are predetermined too, the first competitive race that some voters, not all, that some voters may see on their ballot is for state assembly. How do you get anyone excited to turn out if every contest on the ballot is a foregone conclusion except for state assembly?
I think that goes back to our side. Sometimes the prophecies that we have become self-fulfilling. Again, in picking in even the state assembly races, and I've talked about this before, many of the turnout is literally, the undervote, as we call it, is literally around 20% of the potential electorate. People turn in a ballot, but they don't vote, to your point. It's up to our side, the Republican side, to unite and take a message and continue to pound it. Bluntly, and saying this on the air, I think part of the problem is we've let Gavin Newsom off the hook by swiveling back and forth to the thing that he brings up, and then we either ignore it or don't hold. And when I say Gavin, I don't mean Gavin. I know Gavin's not running, but the Democratic side. They have these failures, and we know about gas. We're now paying $2 more a gallon than everybody else. So we know about the homelessness, and we know about the crime, and we know about the inflation. But what we don't ever do, I think, is look back, and I'm going to pick on example with Gavin Newsom or the Democrats and their tiny houses. Big press release, we're building 1,200 tiny houses. Like a really good idea. I think we built 2 in a year and a half. But we don't go back and call them out on that. And to do that, the candidates themselves and the Republican Party really have to unite under one tent to get people excited, not only about the candidates, but not feel like it's a lost cause. It's interesting because redrawing these districts, and I'm going to take your point and invert it a little bit here. We redraw these districts. Many of our candidates have won with not a spectacular turnout either. So if more of our people would turn out and more of the no party preference would turn out, because back to the Prop 50 election, we have to take a simple message and pound it home using digital and other things. We can stimulate turnout, but we have to stimulate turnout by not we're making people aware of elections like we're doing right now, like it's a football game, play by play. Every day I get a report how many people of each ethnicity, age group, county have voted almost moment by moment. Kind of cool for guys like you and me that are in the swamp. But then we start to write and we start to talk about it, and then people go, well, why should I bother to vote? We're already down 45-0. It's the third quarter. I'm leaving the stadium. And so we have to start. The Democrats are spinning a negative message. They pound it, and then when they have a positive message, we're doing something good, our side doesn't follow up on it and say, hey, that didn't work. What happened to all those nurses you were hired a few years ago, Gavin? We hired 90,000 nurses. 850 actually joined the program, and supposedly he was hiring 90,000. None of the programs work. Trump's programs do work, but we don't flow that message down. We let ourselves get caught up into this rhetoric of negativity. And I'm not necessarily not being realistic here. I'm just saying I really think the problem becomes, let's pick on, most people I know are not for men playing in women's sports. It's illogical. Gavin Newsom agreed with it when he was on his own podcast. But what's Gavin Newsom done about it? And forget that it's not Gavin Newsom running. What have the Democrats done about it? Many Democrats go, oh, yeah, probably isn't really wise idea to have a 6'4" person playing against a person that's 5'3" and weighs half the weight. It doesn't end well. Most people agree on that. But we don't go back and hold them accountable. And if we could pick a few talking points and stay on them instead of falling into this trap. Look, John, I'm going to guarantee you by next June, most people who didn't know who their congressperson was before are still not going to know who their congressperson is going to be then either. We in the business have to push the message forward that we can do something by getting out and voting. The Democrats in California count on what I call the party of apathy. They know they're going to get enough turnout in the right spots to be able to win. Most of the election stats would come out, and there is a good Republican putting out election stats, Cole Patterson now, with a good spin on it. But most of the press is getting their spin from PDI, the same guy that drew the maps. Okay, you're like, well, he drew the maps. Of course he's going to make himself look right. And he puts his own spin on top of the same statistics every day.
All right. Mike, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for stopping by. Mike Netter, founding member of Recall Gavin Newsom 2020. You can find him online at rebuildcalifornia.com and follow him on X at NetterMike. Mike Netter, thanks so much for stopping by.
A pleasure.
It's the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to keep listening after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All you got to do is search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcast.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the Apple Podcasts app,
absolutely.
iHeart,
And he said absolutely.
Spotify,
absolutely.
Search for the John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
How
are you?
Absolutely good.
Love to shake your hand.
Yes, it's been amazing.
It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a Republican campaign strategist who you can follow on X at Lonnie Leitner. That's Lonnie with a Y, Lonny. Lonnie Leitner, welcome.
Great to be with you today.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. So let's start out with the election going on right now in New York City, where every poll I have seen that's been conducted recently has the socialist candidate running under the Democratic banner, Mamdani, winning that election in a walk. There are two candidates who are left on the ballot who are actively campaigning for that seat, who both don't want Mamdani to win, obviously, but they're not willing to join forces to defeat him. Where Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, former radio talk show host on our sister station, WABC in New York, he's coming in third, and he has resisted all of the pressure of dropping out of the race so far. Then you have the former Democratic governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who is polling in second place. He's not willing to drop out and get behind Curtis either. So it looks like New York City could have a mayor who is as politically radical as we have seen in this country ever before, and no one's willing to do what it takes to stop him. Everyone's still worried about their own ego, their own, I guess, idea of self-worth, but no one's willing to put the city ahead of their own ambition. Your thoughts?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Let's think back to when Cuomo was governor of New York during the COVID pandemic. He didn't care about New Yorkers then when he put seniors in nursing homes to die. He didn't care about New Yorkers when he was in a scandal with the Me Too movement. He's never cared about New Yorkers, so why would he start caring about them now? Curtis Sliwa, he may get a good soundbite in every now and then on Fox News, but in the debates, he's bombed. I happen to like the guy, but, he's just not hit the home run that he's needed to hit. As you pointed out, Mamdani is up about 14 to 15 points, depending on the poll. But I just saw a poll that came out today, and get this, among American-born New Yorkers. So again, Americans born in New York, Andrew Cuomo actually leads the mayor's race with 40%, Mamdani coming in at 31%, and Sliwa coming in at 25%. So, because of that, I kind of think that would be a good barometer for Sliwa to drop out of the race. But oddly, on the same poll, they polled American foreign-born New Yorkers. And guess what? Mamdani leads 62% to Cuomo's 24%. So those hard-working, patriot, red, white, and blue loving Americans that work hard and play by the rules, they don't like Mamdani. And I think you're spot on with everything you said. I do have one slight critique. You called Mamdani a socialist. He is a all-out communist. And I really do think we need to call him a communist Jew hater, in fact.
Well, let's talk about that, because the definition, according to my political science textbooks, of socialist is the government should own the means of production. And that word gets thrown around a lot in American campaigns, and sometimes we use it correctly and sometimes we don't. In this particular case, this guy is not a liberal Democrat who just wants to keep jacking taxes up so he can give it to his cronies and give it to the public employee unions. This guy believes the government should own the means of production. Why is it, considering that the financial houses, many of them are headquartered out of New York, we know a lot of business is headquartered out of New York, why didn't that group of people get together and kneecap this guy early on? Because if a mayor gets into that office and really follows through with his promises, I don't even know what it looks like. Do you just go into these businesses and use eminent domain to kick them out and say this now belongs to me? Do you open up shop next door to them using their taxes that they produce to go into competition with them, and you undercut them to drive them out of business the way it used to work in the old days with monopolies? I don't know what it looks like. Or do you just jack taxes up to some ungodly amount and you just give everyone subsidies so that even though they spend the money at the existing grocery stores and spend the money at the existing dry cleaners and whatever, the money is really coming from people who are working in New York City and paying those taxes? What do you think his platform actually looks like in practice?
Well, I think it's all hat, no cattle. This is a very utopian platform. And, as you pointed out, American businesses should have gotten off their butt and they should have gotten involved early. But like most businesses in America, especially, now that we've gone through the woke era, the businesses don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to upset the customers. So they try to be all things to all people. Now, look, I've run many campaigns and I've sat in with the business communities, the Chamber of Commerce types, the business owners. And at the beginning of the election cycle, it never fails. The business community, they're all in. And then, some bad polls come out a few, months later, and then they get a little bit of hesitant. And then they see the polls, with Madami up 14 points. They're not going to do anything. What they're going to do, Johnny, they're not going to raise the prices. They are going to move to states like Florida, like Texas, like South Carolina, and even like my neighbor to the south, the great state of Iowa.
What do you think happens in the courts? Let's just say he takes the most extreme version of his platform and runs with it. Because this guy, and I'm saying this not as hyperbole, but this guy could be a Democratic nominee for president at some point in the future. I really do believe that. But let's just say that he shows up to a dry cleaner and he says, "This now belongs to me. I ran on the platform of the government owns the means of production, and I want all of the employees at the dry cleaning shop to be city employees. The mayor is going to be the one calling the shots and determining the prices and determining the wages and the benefits at the dry cleaning shop. I'm using eminent domain. Here is your check. Get out." Can you envision a scenario where the courts say, yeah, we're okay with that?
I really don't know how active the courts will be. When the Democrats lose elections, we see historically that if they can't beat us at the ballot box, they will then go and beat us in the courts. Unfortunately, I really don't know enough to say that the courts would, maybe come to our rescue with our businesses. But if you remember back in 2012 when Mitt Romney was running against Barack Obama, a race that Mitt Romney should have won hands down, Barack Obama made a slip up. He said, if you own a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else did. Mandami is just a little bit more clearer and a little bit more honest, but all Democrats think this at the end of the day. I as I live in Minnesota, and Ilhan Omar, who hates Jews, who hates gays, she is treated with kid gloves by the Republican Party and federal elected office holders in the state of Minnesota. They all love to raise money on Ilhan Omar. But you know what? My be God, they don't want Ilhan Omar to lose because they can raise tons of money nationwide running against the boogeyman, otherwise known as Ilhan Omar. And I honestly think, Trump's kind of said it. Let Mandami win, let the communists win, and let the people of New York get a taste of how bad this would be and how bad it could potentially be at the federal level. And, who knows, maybe they're thinking it would help the Republicans in the midterms, or, they would have another boogeyman to raise national dollars off of.
What you said about Obama is so true, because other Democrats are really hesitating to get behind him. We certainly saw that with Hakeem Jeffries, who is the Democratic leader in the House. We saw that with Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, both of whom, by the way, from the state of New York. But Obama has not shown that same hesitancy. He was enthusiastically supporting Mamdani the moment he won that primary and hasn't looked back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Barack Obama has the shackles and no racial epithets meant for that phrase, but he's been quite aggressive. He can let his hair down, if you will, and he can tell the American people what he thinks. We need more Mandamis in Barack Obama's mind. And as you know, in California, every time you turn on the television, watching the NBA, the Major League Baseball playoffs, how many times did we see Barack Obama, a former president, insert himself into the Prop 50 fights? They are the, anti-democracy party. They want to rig the election, if you will. And like I said, they can't beat us at the ballot box, so they want to try to cheat and steal as many congressional seats, and they want to get communists elected at all levels of government.
Could you see a scenario where Mamdani becomes the Democratic nominee? And I say that because I just feel a storm brewing right now on that side of the aisle, where if they try to pick another machine Democrat, someone like Joe Biden or someone like Kamala Harris or the governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro, and they say, okay, this is who the Democratic Party power brokers want. Let's all get behind this candidate. I see them losing control of their own voters. And I see a renegade candidate who doesn't have the consent or the support of the establishment in the Democratic Party saying, you know what, I'm going to run against the party in the same vein as Bernie Sanders in the past, but I'm going to run stronger than Bernie, and I'm going to have more energy than Bernie, and I'm going to do better than Bernie. I see a candidate like that, and that could be Mamdani, being very, very strong in the Democratic primary.
Yeah, Bernie had a couple things going against him. He was a straight, as far as I know, white male. And in the Democratic Party, it doesn't get you much these days. So, yes, he had crazy ideas, but he was a straight white male, so it wasn't going to advance him in the Democratic primaries. Plus, the Clintons rigged the election a couple times. Otherwise, Bernie would have won. I do think that it's going to be an outsider, and meaning outside of Washington, D.C., that is going to win the Democrat presidential primary. So maybe that does mean a mayor or a governor. I still don't count out that crazy Jasmine Crockett, because in these Democratic primaries, it's like, who can say the craziest things, and whether or not it's even possible of happening, policy-wise, who can go out there and throw out the most red meat and get the farthest of the left activists and delegates involved in their campaign to win the early primaries, and then they're off to the races.
In the state of Virginia, there is a hotly contested race for governor. You also have races for lieutenant governor and attorney general. The attorney general's race in that state has generated most of the attention as the Democratic candidate went on the record in a text message exchange saying that he would like to murder one of his Republican colleagues and murder the children as well. He has apologized for those tweets, or for those text messages, I guess I should say, that he put out, but has refused to drop out of the race. The Democratic Party has stood behind him, even though they have felt the blowback from all of those awful text messages that he put out. According to recent polls, that race is still very close. The Democratic base is turning out and voting for this guy. Independents are turning on him. But the Democratic voters in the state of Virginia appear to be supporting this guy still, including the other candidates for office. The Democratic candidate for governor revealed publicly that she voted for him and still supports him in his race for attorney general. Do you think that candidate, despite all of his problems, is going to win?
Well, in Virginia, there is still a significant Democrat registration advantage over Republicans. So take out the candidates and all of their personalities and all of their baggage. The Democrats in Virginia still hold a large, and I mean over hundreds of thousand, identified registered Democrats than Republicans. So that alone is a very tough uphill climb for any Republican in the state of Virginia to overcome. In Virginia, like Minnesota, the Republican candidates have to run perfect races, and I mean perfect races, and then we got to pray that the Democrats make some mistakes along the way. It's disgusting to me to look when you look at the crosstabs in this Virginia race. It's these single cat ladies in Virginia that could pull this guy across the line to victory. But let's pray that that doesn't happen.
All right. The state of New Jersey is also having an election for governor. The Republican candidate has run statewide before, come close, but not win. The Democratic candidate appears to be exciting virtually no one. Do you see an upset brewing there, or do you think the registration advantage in Virginia will put that in the Democrats' column too?
To your point, yes, the Democrats do have a significant voter registration advantage. However, the race on average is about a 5-point difference with the Democrat ahead, so just slightly out of the margin of error. But if we've looked historically, Tom Kaine, Christy Todd Whitman, Chris Christie, they were all down by, 7 to 8 points at about this time, and they all came through to win. So I do have hope in Virginia, and I do know that a lot of third parties are spending last-minute dollars in New Jersey. So if you're an independent-leaning Republican or a low Republican propensity voter, buckle up, because you're going to be getting a ton of calls, a ton of postcards, and a ton of door knocks until you get your ballot in. It's going to be a squeaker, and I predict that the Republicans will win New Jersey governor before we win the Virginia governor, and that's a shame, because Winsome Earl-Sears is a strong candidate, a black candidate, and a Marine. And she would make a good governor, but the polls just aren't there for her right now.
Lonnie Leitner, Republican campaign strategist. You can follow him on X at Lonnie Leitner. Lonnie, thanks so much for stopping by.
Have a great day.
That's going to do it for us today, but we'll be back tomorrow at noon, and I'll be live from San Francisco. But, Randy, you'll be in the South.
Yeah, I'm going to be real jealous.